what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lineage Break Podcast. I am your host, Cam. With me, as always, is Gluey. Hello, Glooman.
I need to wash it, but I got something for the bit. I went to Target today because I needed deodorant and more cologne, and
You smell lovely.
thank you. And they had Bluey shirts.
Oh, okay.
So I bought a Bluey shirt.
That's so good.
But it needs to be washed, so like I didn't wear it today.
We're gonna doctor it though, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna like cross out the B.
Surely.
It's Gluey.
I'm doubling down on the bit.
That's really good.
Yeah.
We like it. Hey, shout out to that guy, by the way. I don't think we ever talked about that. I think his name is Alex. Is that right?
I don't know his. It's really bad because I don't know his name.
Or terrible names. I believe
But his name is Quakums on Discord.
Well, I believe his name is Alex, and the reason why I know that is because he
won. Yeah,
the
I
Scrubbed Out event.
messaged you. I messaged you.
So congrats to you, Alex. If
he
that
won.
is your
He
real
won the
name.
Scrubbed Out event. Got that giant Tristan. Sold it immediately.
But good for him. Yeah. I would too.
I like posted on his sell post, and I was like, God, I wish I had the money for the girl.
Yeah. But hey, congrats, man.
Yeah, congratulations.
Good things come to those that clown Steve. So you remember that the next time that you see Steven.
Oh boy.
Make sure you clown him.
Apparently, if
good things come to
if you clown on me, you get good luck forever, and it just precedes my bad luck.
That's true. That's how it works. So
Just continues.
in Toronto, make sure to clown Steven.
Yeah, if you want to win Toronto, make sure to bully me on the internet.
And hey, go buy your Toronto tickets if you haven't. Toronto tickets are on sale for Ascent Toronto.
All right, so I don't know if we've talked about it since I bought my ticket.
Tickets? No, I don't think so.
I got real upset.
Yeah?
Because
Mulder?
I clicked, I waited all day. I had my thing set. The alarm went off. I clicked on the site. It didn't load. It didn't load. Page loaded. I clicked VIP, clicked purchase. It said, we're out. I went, it's 9:02. I just wanted.
You gotta be quicker than that, Steve.
I couldn't be. The internet wouldn't load fast enough.
I got that big VIP ticket.
I'm so mad.
9 o'clock on the dot.
It's like the one time
30 seconds.
The one time I actually had the money to buy a VIP ticket, because for every time Grand Archive does anything for me, or for the community, right? Merch day, ticket sales
For me.
It's always on an off week in between.
Oh, I know.
I'm like at the end of my paycheck, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to get anything.
Almost like clockwork on like rent week. Stop that. Put it in like the middle of the month for me, please.
But
it's like tickets go on sale on the 1st. I was like, I have to pay rent. It's the 1st.
But this time, it landed the day after I got paid, and I was like, we're going in. And then I didn't.
Well, if you have a VIP ticket you want to sell to Steven.
Just didn't even get it.
But yeah, I sniped in there. I was so we were at the store. It was during locals.
Yeah.
Because it was at like 9 p.m. or something. And I made an announcement round 2. And I was like, there will be a short intermission between your rounds 2 and 3 because tickets go on sale at 9 o'clock. And of course, anybody who's been around the block like we, and I assume you did this as well, knows that you can't wait for them to post the tickets or online. You have to go to the tickets because they do go live exactly when they say they do, and then they post the link like a minute or two later. Right. So I, remembered that they put the link in the announcement of tickets going on sale. Was that like the bottom of the article?
I clicked the button. Remind me.
Yeah, I just manually went to the to the link in the article for Ascent Chicago, and so I was doing that, but everyone was around me standing at the counter, and they were asking me questions like, how do you get there? Where's the link or whatever? But I was just in like full brain off focus mode as I was mashing in my fucking login details into Eventbrite, and then I did get it. So I'll see you guys in that VIP room. We can all share one can of Diet Coke.
Yeah,
that is
really
the VIP benefits.
I just wanted the VIP.
Well, just beat somebody to death in the parking lot and take their VIP badge.
I'll just stand in the doorway like I usually do, looking in, all sad. And then,
who can we can beat somebody to death.
And then Teke will just be like, come on in.
Yeah. Loveliest person in the world, but the person checking VIP badges at Chicago was Eva, so you can probably just walk in. You can beat Trent to death. That's the gift. I don't know if he has a ticket. He's just offering to.
Yeah. Well, sure. He said he didn't buy his Chicago ticket. So,
perfect.
So
he just wants you to beat him to death. But yeah, so we do have our Toronto tickets. We are ready to go.
Passports are in the mail.
Sort of.
Asterisk. My passport will be in the mail soon. I'll send pictures of it when it shows up.
It looks so tough. The picture was
yeah.
definitely a mugshot.
Yeah, I sent they take 2 pictures or whatever, and I sent my picture.
Was that a physical picture?
Yeah, it's a physical picture.
Can I put that in my wallet?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's sitting on my desk at home. I'll bring it into you.
100%.
But yeah, they gave me the extra picture. I took a picture and sent it in, and really I didn't realize how windblown my hair is in that. And it looks like I'm being arrested for like.
for me, it's it looks like you're not looking at the camera. You're like looking off into the distance.
I was looking straight, and then I smiled, and she said, "Don't smile." So then I didn't smile.
Like, I'm sure everybody looks terrible because they tell you not to smile, so they all just like look like mugshots.
Yeah.
Like we don't.
But the combination of like the fact that my shirt is open because it's a button-up collared shirt, and my hair is so badly windswept.
Yeah.
It
looks like you were in a wind tunnel.
Yeah. Well, because it was a nice day out, so I had the windows down, so I drove there with the windows down. And then when I got in there, I like did one of these.
Yeah.
But apparently that wasn't enough.
Mm-mm.
And
you got it's
I'll
adorable.
post it on Twitter.
You guys love it. It's adorable. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the 1,000 yards there for me. It just looks like you're looking at something off in the distance.
Yeah. I was just trying to like get it done.
Yeah. No, I know. But I'm sure mine will be equally awful. But we can exchange pictures.
Yeah. Texas does not.
Texas is also awful.
I thought he looked fine.
I mean, you both look fine. They just look like mug shots, right? Like it's not,
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're like, don't smile. She's like, don't smile.
That's so strange.
All right.
Why would they not want you to smile?
Because they for your passport they want a neutral face.
Sure. But then like whenever you go to the airport, right?
You're also not allowed
Grand
to,
Archive podcast,
you're also not allowed to have glasses on.
Yeah, that is also strange.
Yeah.
But like you go to the airport, right, with your glasses on, and you come up to the person that is checking your passport. And you're a normal human. And so when you're having a social interaction with a stranger, you'll be A, wearing your glasses, and B, smiling like a human.
Right.
And so they'll look at your picture and they'll be like, this guy not wearing glasses, not smiling. And they'll be like, can you take your glasses off and stop smiling, please?
Well, I mean, like,
think
about like Trent, right? Like,
yeah.
His does not look anything like him.
Yeah, Trent could not use his passport picture if it was current. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyways, hey guys, we play Grand Archive, and we will see you playing Grand Archive in Ascent Toronto.
Yeah, I will in fact be there. It's already.
He's done it.
It's in the stars.
I will in fact play a deck I like. I hope. I'm manifesting.
I'm probably playing Kong Ming.
Nice. Welcome aboard. She's gonna be sick. She's gonna spin with purpose. I promise.
In my headcanon, she's broken preserve mechanics, and I'm in there for it.
I just want to play mage stuff.
I want to be able to cast Fireball from my preserve.
I don't.
On your.
I want red to be bad. I want her to be exclusively a blue deck. Fingers crossed. But listen, all I want, man, I like spells. That's what I figured out. Cleric, mage. I like spells. I want to win the game by casting spells.
Fireball's a spell.
Other than Fireball. That card's cringe.
Arcane Blast is a spell.
Arcane Blast is sick. That's the two sides of the coin, right? I would love Fireball if you had to work for it. And so I guess
Tirana. All right. Well,
Tirana. We do actually say that all the time.
Literally all of the time.
If
you open up our
Tirana,
our group chat, I spell it Taranta.
Yeah, there you go.
Tirana.
No T's. Tirana.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Fireball, I think I've come back around. Fireball is Pog. Fireball, just cringe in Merlin.
Yeah.
I think Fireball's a fair card if you have to work for it. Like Rai casting Fireball, totally reasonable. He had to work for that. He had to get his 8 levels, his 8 cards in banishment. He doesn't just wait 4 turns and then it's lethal.
Right.
You know? So. It's not a problem with Fireball. It's a problem with you, chat. Merlin players. Jesus. What's wrong with you? So, today, there's a couple of things I want to touch on, but I don't want to dive too deep. We are in our favorite season of Grand Archive, which is Silidar Tidbit season.
Whew.
So
My favorite.
I do want to touch on a couple of our recent Silidar tidbits. I think, so last set, we did a whole episode about Mr. Greywolf's cryptic tweets. But I think I like it better as a episode starter. You know, we talk about a couple of tidbits and then we go into the main topic of the show. So we're going to talk about a couple of those Silidar tidbits, and then today, as we've made our way through a good portion of the MRC season, we are doing our Mercurial Heart retrospective that we do for every set. If you guys enjoy us talking the way that we're going to talk today, you can find our retrospectives for every Grand Archive set that has been released. But we're going to talk about MRC as a whole, how we feel about the set now looking backward, the impact on the meta, the impact on the game, mostly. Obviously, like you'll hear us and any other competitive player in Grand Archive talk about the metagame till we're blue in the face. But we think it's a little bit more interesting to talk about these set releases as it impacts Grand Archive as a whole, and sort of what it means for the future, and things that we can look back on and things that we can take forward into the future of Grand Archive. So I've been doing some scrolling here on Silidar Twitter, and they're all okay. Here we go. I just want to talk about 4 and 5. I think those are the recent ones. So Silidar, for those of you that don't know, is the lead designer of the game. I do have an interview with said man that I was finally working on last night. Sorry, it's been a very busy week for me. I absolutely fucked up the audio, so I'm doing some doctoring to make it sound a little bit better. Sorry, but I think it sounds fine. I've come to the point where you guys will be able to listen to it, so I'm no longer losing sleep over it. But I'm stupid. All things come with time. Anyway, so Mr. Lead Developer Man puts out tidbits for the new set, which are like super cryptic, fun facts about the set that will eventually make sense. And so we're going to talk about a couple of those today. So first on our list, we have AMB tidbit number 4. Steven, if you would.
AMB tidbit number 4 from Silidar. There exists a card that pays homage to a card that is currently banned.
I really liked your like audiobook voice there.
I've been listening to an audiobook because Stormlight 5 is coming out soon, so I'm doing a reread.
When at some point maybe Steve and I make the Patreon account for Lineage Break, but we don't want to take your money, so we feel really weird about it. But when we do, keep this in your mind, chat. And if you have ideas, let us know. What book would you like Steve to record his audiobook version of?
I'll read a book to you guys.
And we will get that.
And tell me why it's the entire synopsis of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, we can do that. If you can find a written synopsis, we'll read it. Exists a card that pays homage to a card that is currently banned. Is interesting. They definitely do this. Right, like this wouldn't be the first time. Like Storm Slime is a great example of that, and just about as absurd as Reckless Conversion, but has that Reckless Conversion feel to it. I guess sort of like Erratic Bolt as well. That's sort of that evocative feel of Arcane. But we have to assume, right? We're in a weird spot. We're currently in Grand Archive. The only cards that are banned. Literally the only cards that are banned are Warrior and Mage cards.
Yeah. Well, because they're kind of broken.
Yeah. So it could be literally any of them. We have 3 cards that are currently banned. It is Crystal of Empowerment, Reckless Conversion, and Sword of Avarice. I pray to sweet baby Jesus that we are not referencing Sword of Avarice, because that is obviously the most absurd one. My assumption is it's something like Crystal of Empowerment, which was like probably a fine card if it had Mage class bonus. It was just like a little bit too ubiquitous. People were using it in like Warrior decks to turn on Banner Knights and stuff. Right?
I'd be okay if this is like locked behind an advanced element.
Yeah, I mean,
if we're talking about like a Crystal of Empowerment, right? Like,
Yeah, I wonder.
I think it's fine if it's locked behind, like Seed of Nature.
Right.
Right. That card exists and it's fine.
So yeah, my sort of assumption is if that is the case, that it's not a mage card because mage basically already has one in Seed of Nature, and so maybe it's like a Exia warrior card.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely interesting.
I'd also be okay
mm-hmm.
if it is a homage to Sword of Avarice.
Yeah.
Because Sword of Avarice is only broken because you can loop it.
Right. That's a fair point. So I guess that is pretty reasonable, especially now that we've seen, what's it called? The pole arm, the fire one.
Yeah.
We know that Jin is going to be a pole arm base warrior, so it could be a pole arm of Avarice.
Right.
You know,
a draw 2, discard 1 or something like that.
Which we've largely said is fine. I think Sword of Avarice would be fine if Spiritblade Ascension didn't exist.
Right.
Probably in a world where Spiritblade, Cruxite, Ghost of Pendragon don't exist, right? Where you don't already have this absurd card advantage engine, like having a singular piece of card advantage in something like Polearm of Avarice, I think would be okay.
Right.
So that's reasonable.
That's kind of where I was thinking too. It's just like Crux has so much advantage gathering. Like it's like if it was just Sword of Avarice and like Cruxite, cool, but it's not, right? Like you were saying, it's Ascension. You have Pendragon. You have all this stuff where you can recur.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much.
Cheating. Yeah.
Right. Cheating. However, I think drawing 2 cards is innately not that strong of an effect.
At least if you're paying 2 for it.
If you're paying 2 for it, right?
It's an even exchange of resources, theoretically. Yeah.
So like, it's not absurd to think that is where they're aiming for.
But maybe you're right. Maybe they're a little concerned, and it's something like draw 2, ditch 1.
Right.
Yeah. Draw 2, put 1 back, something like that.
Yeah. I can't see, as much as people want it back, I can't see it being Reckless Convergence.
No.
That card is just absurd, right?
I think, I think this was in that interview that you guys will see eventually, I promise. Talked a little bit about Reckless Conversion. And I don't know that it's necessarily the power level that's the issue. It's sort of the play pattern that is the issue. And so if they can print something that's evocative to Reckless Conversion, but not the same play pattern, the problem ultimately with Reckless Conversion, and you guys can like go back on the GA website, they do a great job of explaining why cards are banned. So you can like go look at the ban list for Reckless Conversion and they'll explain to you why it was banned. It's mostly because of the play pattern that card represents, where it would virtually let the Rai player take a second turn, and Rai is a combo deck and his turns are long as it is. So it would lead to this 10, 15 minute sort of stalemate where you have to watch your Rai opponent take game actions for 15 minutes and ultimately not get anything accomplished, and then maybe kill you or maybe brick.
Yeah.
And so maybe if they can do something that's sort of evocative of that in the mage class, but without that sort of time walk aspect, I think that would be fine. Yeah. But you're right, it is a very hard card to balance.
Yeah, I think that's good for Tidbit 4, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's not much really else to say.
It's exciting. We'll see it. And I'm sure it'll be evident which card it is.
Before we do Tidbit 5, I do want to point out another tweet that just caught my eye that I forgot about. So we have a tweet from Mr. Developer Man that says, we want to start building up to Ascent Spirit, building up to the Ascent Spirits. Will likely loop back to each spirit as prize cards with different art. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, building the IP. Yeah. We don't need a new spirit girl for every spirit in perpetuity. It would just be way too many characters. So they're going to try to build, Aethne and Gwendolyn and stuff as characters, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Gwendolyn is pretty cool.
Get Gwendolyn.
More wet grippers.
Only Gwendolyn's, please.
Yeah.
So do you think so we got Vyra. We're going to get 2 more.
Yeah, probably.
A water and a wind.
Maybe then we loop back to Vera or something.
And then,
or to Aethne.
Aethne. We go back to Aethne and it's...
He's got it.
My brain just exploded.
And there it goes.
Serene?
No, I don't think so.
No?
No, I think
They're just going to stay basics?
Yeah, I think they're always going to be basic spirits, and I think it's better that way, especially with Serene and Fragmented and stuff, like having
Foils.
But not to mention, it seems like the sort of MO, obviously Grand Archive's a pretty small game, it's new. So we can't make inferences like 25 years like we can for something like Magic, but we can see that each supplemental set that has been released so far for Grand Archive, being FTC and MRC, have both introduced new spirits, and so my assumption is that that is sort of the design philosophy, is that we'll get these new alternate spirits whenever an expansion set comes out. And so it would be really hard for them to keep up with that. And those cards being printed at UR makes them sort of a chase card. And so I think printing a chase card as a prize card feels a little bit worse. So yeah, I think ultimately they'll probably stay the basic spirits.
That makes sense.
I know that part of their design philosophy was that the basic spirits will never be like power creeped. Like we're never going to get a on enter draw 7 with an upside, right? Like draw 7 glimpse 1 will just never happen because it would just be a strict upgrade on the spirits, right? So but it's good. We love Gwendolyn. She's
only Gwendolyn.
So hot.
I love her so much.
I'm sad she's wind. Can we get them like color shifted? That would be great.
That'd be sick.
Can we get
actually.
Gwendolyn in water?
You got Sabrina. She's cute.
Yeah, Sabrina is cute, but she's not
Gwendolyn.
So Tidbit 5 is, I think, a really big deal, at least for me. We'll see how the community, feels about it. AMB Silver and Gold event packs will be consolidated into one type of pack. We have seen the pack. If I'm not too lazy, I'll be, whoa, and it'll be right there.
Well, right here?
So instead of Silver and Gold, there's going to be singular event pack. As a tournament organizer, that is so good. So good. It's really hard to determine how you want to distribute silver and gold packs in a ratio that makes sense, in a way that makes people not feel bad. And it is so much easier to just be like, hey, you get this many packs for doing this. Is way easier than distributing gold and silver. And we hear people all the time talk about how much better silver packs are. And, Steve and I were talking about this a little bit before the show. This is very obviously because there are more silver packs.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just like, I saw it on main court the other day where people were talking about, after this was announced, people were talking about like, oh, it's good, the ratios, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, gold packs are good because you guaranteed a super rare. Right? Super rare or better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome, right?
Right.
So obviously they're better, but like people are like, well, you get more CSS out of silver. Well, the ratios are all the same.
Right.
You just, like you were saying, there's way more silver packs in an event kit.
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels like the pull ratio is better.
Yeah. And I think if it was any other company, thanks for the tip, weebs, drinking the Kool-Aid or whatever. I think if it was any other company, I would be worried that we lose some of those like guaranteed SRs, right? The nice thing about the gold packs is that you always get an SR or a foil, so they're like always good, especially in a time in the game where some of the SRs are worth a lot of money. Open your Academy guide out of your event pack feels really good. And so if it were another company, I might have been worried that they would like reduce the amount of SRs, but I very much assume that won't be the case. They'll just obviously be spread out and they'll be a little bit less clear where they are, but I have full confidence that this was not a change made for them to, hoard more high rarity stuff.
Right.
It is obviously very much easier for them to produce if it is one pack and one, sheet that is randomized into these packs. They're also black, which I really assume is to prevent people from like flashlighting through them to find CSRs and stuff like that, which has been a problem historically in the past. I think with the newer packs, it's a lot harder, but like DOA packs, it was very easy to like flashlight them and see what's inside. And so they're black now, which I assume is harder to do. So I think, a good change overall. It'll make it a lot easier to distribute event packs. And thank you as somebody who is a TO. It's very, very helpful for me.
I would imagine that there's probably the same amount of SRs as they were gold packs.
Yeah, like probably. I would have to assume. But
But
we'll
now
see.
it's just going to be mixed up.
Maybe they'll let us know. If that is the case, let us know. I know you watch.
We'll find out. Eventually.
So that is, I think that is it for our number one Silidar Twitter fan podcast.
There's one more I want to talk about.
Oh no! Is it Ordinary Horse?
No, not Ordinary Horse, but there is a card called Ordinary Horse, and I think that's awesome.
He's hot.
No. Lore. There's a lore tidbit from Bell.
Oh, that's true. So we're done with the Silidar number one fan podcast. We're moving on to the Bell number one fan podcast.
I think the lore stuff from Bell is awesome, and I wanted to spotlight it a little bit.
Hi, Theo.
In Sangguo, the golden sashes hold a powerful artifact with magical abilities. Legend says it holds the key to what former emperor sought immortality.
I really hope we're getting sort of nods from Bell. Thanks, Bell. To immortality, godhood, as sort of worked its way into the lore. We got like a little bit of a tease about like what Revelfest is, being this sort of festival where champions from the Grand Archive can challenge a god to claim their own godhood. So we're getting a lot of shades of this sort of hunt for immortality, and especially in Mortal Ambition, the name being very clear.
Right.
Is about this hunt for immortality. So I'm really hopeful. In my perfect brain, it's right up here. I think a large reason why we haven't seen anyone but Jin and Kongming, and even like the deck box, the booster pack that we've seen, like we're all using these singular pieces of art, right? And I think that these are all sort of burying the lead. I like really do, and maybe I'm too far up my own ass, but I really do think we are going to get returning characters.
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is that we have a sort of FTC Merlin-esque situation where one of these returning characters is our like villain for the setting, because they're so like obsessed with this hunt for immortality that has sort of been lost and hidden within Sangguo. So I think it is cool to hear us get little teases.
Yeah.
This is sorry, go ahead.
I highly suggest you go and watch the TM32 video that Ken and Bifal did about the Three Kingdoms lore. I think it'll add a lot to what you're thinking.
I was I started watching it this morning, but I was running late.
I watched it when it got posted the other day, and I think you're almost spot on with what you're saying. I think there's a couple things that
too good,
because I knew some of Three Kingdoms.
I know nothing about it really.
But I didn't know everything. And Bifal enlightened me, and it's very interesting the comparisons you're making.
Go check it out. Our good homies Ken and Bifal.
Yeah.
I will check it out. I was legitimately watching it this morning, and then I looked at my phone. I was like, oh, it's 11:45. I should probably
is that why you were
should probably head out the door or whatever. And
I'm out sitting in the truck.
Go
for
film the podcast.
A million years.
So yeah, that's great. I'm really excited because this is, as far as I know, I think this is the first set that Bell has been like fully on board for.
Right.
And so, I love Grand Archive, and it's like easy to attach ourselves to characters and stuff. But like, as much as I love her, I'm gonna break the fourth wall here. I'm attached to Arisana because she's cute, right? But like we don't really know anything about basically any of the champions. The lore is like very light. We had those like few articles that like Roger put out, a year ago. But I'm like really excited to like be able to dig into the game, the characters, the world a little bit more, so that we can have more of an attachment with these characters than, I like her for two huge reasons, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for Mortal Ambition. I assume we'll get lots more lore stuff. And you.
And me.
September 14th is when they're doing the developer live stream where they will be going over the design notes as well. I hope that Bell is in attendance and we get some lore
juicy
stuff.
Lore.
So Theo, I know you're watching. Make that happen. All right. Thanks. All right. So, Steven.
Cameron.
It's the end of the season. Not necessarily true, but
we still have a little bit. But
we have some regionals. We have Ascent Singapore before the end of the season, but by the time Singapore rolls around, we're going to be 2 weeks away from Mortal Ambition. So we'll be
Yeah.
full on Mortal Ambition time. Spoiler season will be in
Full swing.
Full swing. We'll have the design notes already. So we're going to take today to do our MRC retrospective. If you guys are just hopping in live, for every set of Grand Archive, we do a retrospective where we talk about the set as a whole, how we felt about the design, the implementation of it, its impact on the game in the now, its impact on the game in the future. And I think this is a pretty big one, which, it's a supplemental set. It's our expansion set, right? So, like, theoretically, it shouldn't be making as many waves as I feel like it did, but Grand Archive being such a new game, every set is an opportunity for new ground to be explored, and so when that new ground is explored, I think it sort of reverberates through the whole game.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about MRC, because I think as a whole it was great, but I think there was a big issue with it that kind of overshadowed it.
Sure. You want to start us off?
Yeah, I think. There's too much. So, like, I don't think people have explored MRC enough. I don't think the cards have been given their due time. Because I think the recollection decks overshadowed the main set, or the actual set. I think so many players looked at these recollection decks and were like, oh, wow, these cards are super strong, that a lot of archetypes that probably exist in MRC have never seen the light of day, with the exception of the Nico deck.
It's a little bit more fun when you and I are on opposite sides of the spectrum, right? Like, add some yin and yang to it. But I assume that you and I, which is good. Hey, you got a good brain on your shoulders there, Stephen. Yeah. I think you and I are going to be very aligned in this. I think that you're right, and I think a large portion of the episode today will be talking about those recollection decks, which are so at the forefront of the game. Not only are they a new product SKU for Grand Archive, they are sort of treading new ground for TCGs in general, which, again, puts them at the forefront. And then, I think their competitive strength is a really big deal. And so, just like you said, it's twofold. So, recollection decks, let's be clear, and I know that you and I are united on this front. A terrific idea, an amazing product, so great for building the game, building the community, a terrific entry point for new players. We were blessed enough to be able to find some in stock at our distributor, and we just restocked today, and I am beyond thrilled because I know with the case or two of recollection decks that we have, each and every one of those sales will be a new player. And so they are great in that regard. But in a couple of ways, they were, I think, a little bit problematic. I think that the development team did a great job in making these recollection decks competitive. That's what you want. And if that's not what you want, I think you're kidding yourself. Anytime there is one of these entry products, your Magic Challenger decks, your Flesh and Blood Armory decks, whatever these, you can buy this, take it to your local tournament sort of decks are. You always want them to be good, and they never are. Like, everybody has to make excuses where it's like, well, it's not that bad, and if you add these 15 cards, it's okay, and you get this one reprint in it, which is worth some money, so it's probably worth it. That is not the case with these. They are very competitive, and I think that is the spot where they want to be. I don't think that they were overcooked. But something that is, I think, very specific to Grand Archive and to small games in general, and something that Silidar has echoed before, is the game is small. There are not a ton of events, so there are not a ton of data points. So it means that deck building is sort of behind what it would be were the game bigger, more ubiquitous, right? And so it takes longer for things to be discovered. I think all the time about the advent of Wind, Ferrari, Lorraine, people call it, Crux range now or something stupid, but I'm a boomer and I remember Limelight.
Isn't that called
Starter Declarant? Yeah, Starter Declarant, yeah. Was a deck that like only sort of popped up very late into that format.
Yeah.
But it seems like, looking back in hindsight, it seems so clear that that was the best deck. And it's like, how did we not see it?
Right.
It's because the game is small and it takes a while for these things to be discovered. And so I think the problem that happened with the Recollection decks, and I think what you said is exactly right, is that the Recollection decks were built for you because that's what the product is. And so with a few changes to those decks, like, we should put dungeon guards into the Sylvie deck. They make them very competitive, but they make some of those like deck building decisions are removed. They give you like this nice framework to build upon. And so you know, if you're a very talented player, you know, shout outs to the guys at Chess Club, right? You take this skeleton and you put your work onto the skeleton until you find the perfect variation of that build, but you didn't have to build it from the ground up.
Right.
And so I think that whether or not these are the best decks in the meta is still sort of unclear. They are just obviously very strong and tier 1 contenders. But a lot of the work was done for us. We got that skeleton in those Recollection decks, and so with the limited time that we have in between like set release and, you know, these big marquee events, it's easier to innovate on an existing strategy than it is to create an entire new one. And so I think there are maybe some things in MRC that were unexplored. And the only one that really came to the forefront was the advent of this Nico deck, which was sort of barely a deck that existed before, but the advent of new cards like Icebound Slam and Ravaging Finale sort of did build this Nico deck into a real, you know, competitive monster.
Right.
But yeah, I do think the Recollection decks did overshadow MRC, which was a very large set, mind you, like 200 something cards. So I think there are some things that could be explored in MRC that we won't really have time to find before Mortal Ambition comes out, because those Recollection decks are at the forefront.
Right. So, which is something that I'm hoping that later in the line of other sets, some of these MRC cards might have a time to shine. Like, I personally would have loved to see like an actual automaton deck come out of this and actually do well. No one has explored any of the Guardian stuff really. You know, any of like the what's her name? The unique for Guardian.
Guardian unique.
She's Neos.
Cordelia.
Like, yeah. No one explored this Cordelia stuff, and it kind of like really makes me feel like missed opportunities.
Yeah, I think there are plenty of like really cool build around cards. I think Cordelia and Atmos Hermes are a great nod, and that deck like does exist. And the only person that I've seen playing that like Neos deck is Poro, who's on the playtest team. Right? Like, not saying that like whatever Poro plays, like you guys should have seen it, but like there is something there because he knows there's something there, right? Because he helped playtest those cards, and you know, right? It's like Water, Neos, Tenoris, like broken and should be the best deck. No, but it's like a viable deck and a competitive contender, and I would be surprised if there wasn't more decks like that are sort of unexplored. We talked a little bit earlier in this episode about Alex, the guy who won the Scrubbed Out event in Chicago, playing Wind Diana. You know, like there are other decks that you can play that can compete in this room full of Tristans and Sylvies. Well, people just aren't taking the time to look at those.
Right.
And so I think MRC, which I think we talked a little bit about this when it was coming out, the coolest thing that I think about MRC is there's a lot of those build-around cards, stuff like Cordelia, stuff like Ravaging Finale, which obviously has seen some success, but these like unique cards that sort of Calamity Cannon give you these sort of strategies that you can decide to build around, and people just haven't because they've been given, you guys should cast Storm Slime. That card's broken, it kills people.
Right.
And like I can't blame them. I'm not like here, you know, damning the community for not cooking enough. You hand me a competitive deck and you're like, you could play a bad deck for 9 weeks, or you could just play this good one. I'm like, well, I like winning. Winning is cool.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think the MRC set was a little bit overshadowed by these Recollection decks. Something that we did go over in our interview with the developers when we talked to them at Worlds is that hopefully if the Recollection decks are popular enough, and I think they really were, I think they were a slam dunk, and I don't think the devs need us to tell them that. I'm sure that they have the numbers that reflect that. But I think that the Recollection decks would be better served if they were a sort of individual release. If the Recollection decks were released like tomorrow, we're like 8 weeks out from the new set. Right. If we had Recollection decks that drop this weekend as sort of a holdover until we get to the next big release, I think that would be way better because it wouldn't have that sort of overshadowing effect on MRC, which I think as a whole was a really cool set. But I don't know, Steve. I mean, like you've talked to the people as much as I have, but the only thing that I ever hear is people talking about Recollection cards.
Right, and how great they are.
I never hear anybody being like, whoa, dude, I played my Andronica deck yesterday, and it was nuts. That card is so cool. Yeah. It's like, man, Storm Slime's broken, huh?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. So we go Shadow Structure banned.
Right. It's like, where are the 200 plus cards that we got in MRC? Why is nobody talking about Naya and how broken that card is?
Naya's sick.
It's just me.
I don't understand. Hold on.
It's first me and Vern, I guess.
First off, right?
Yeah.
She's overpowered. She's wearing a goddamn sundress.
It's true.
It's too strong.
You know what my favorite revelation of recent memory was at Chicago, and so huge shout out to Clem and Valk. Did a lot of examining of belly buttons at Chicago, and I think I talked about this on the show last week. But maybe I didn't because you're giving me a weird face.
I am first time hearing
a lot of belly button examining, right? And so something that's wild about Grand Archives, I want you to take a solid look at Grand Archive TCG, and I somebody out there, you guys love math. I know you guys love math, and I can't do math. Somebody give me a percentage of female Grand Archive characters. So like art that has characters in it. We're not counting like Water Barrier, right? Because there's no character in that art. So female characters in Grand Archive that have exposed belly buttons. And I think it's like, it will shock you how high that number is. And so what I noticed about Naya, she's wearing a sundress. Did you know that in her sundress, which is a complete sundress without any holes in it, she has a diamond cutout around her belly button?
I did not know
that. Like, what are we doing? I get it, but like, come on. What were we talking about? Is MRC or whatever?
Yeah, we're talking about...
Yeah, build-around cards are cool. So I think...
Speaking of build-around cards, Naya is a great one.
Yeah, and I've tried that deck, and it's like fine.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
It's like lots of really cool decks that I feel are really unexplored. And maybe there is not that competitive strength. And maybe that's it. There's technically a character in Water Barrier, fake fans. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Wow.
Wow. I'll have to look at it again. It's some dummy inside the bubble.
I feel called out. I didn't even say
it. Is it Rye? I don't know. It's a mage card, right? Maybe it's Merlin. Anyways. What was I saying? Absolutely the worst.
We're getting bullied now.
I really like MRC design-wise. I think that is the first truly individualized set. Like, I feel like there are a lot of individualized cards, which I think is the perfect fit for something like an expansion set.
Yeah.
Like, you want the main set to give you these sort of evergreen blanket options, right? Especially in something like ALC that introduce new champions. You want those to be sort of like, here are a bunch of evergreen Guardian cards. You can build your Guardian deck with any of these very powerful Guardian cards. Think something like DOA, right? And then you want the expansion set to be like, here are these very like niche specific cards that take each of these splintered archetypes and make them stronger or give you more options. And that is, I think, exactly what we saw in MRC. So I think that if that was the goal, which is what it feels like, they did a very good job. But then, unfortunately, a lot of that work feels like it was overshadowed by the strength, maybe, of these Recollection decks, but I think most of all the sort of framework given to players with these decks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, honestly. Like, I mean, yeah, again, biased because the girl got the support and I was excited for it. But at the end of the day, like, I think just like the like how well the Recollection decks were put together and just how readily available they were in the beginning to just grab one and then be like, oh, I just have to put like dungeon guides in this deck and I'm good. Like it's kind of wild, but.
So I think the question now, that's how we feel about MRC. But I think the question is what MRC does for the future, especially, maybe at some point when you and I are old and we're in our rocking chairs and we're doing Lineage Break episode 15,000.
And we're like, hey, you want to get a game in?
You remember back when this game was good? 50 years ago. It's important to talk about the future because the game is so new. And as we said earlier, every set with a game so new is treading new ground. And so there's things that will impact the future of the game, either positively or negatively. Mm-hmm. And something that I find really interesting about Grand Archive, technically, right now, even though it is called Standard, is a legacy game. Mm-hmm. There's no rotating format as of yet. So we have to think about the game with that sort of legacy mindset. And something that I find like pretty surprising is that in MRC 4 sets deep, there's not a whole lot of prevailing archetypes.
Right.
It feels like every time a new set comes out, a lot of the archetypes from the last set sort of like phase out of viability and they get replaced with something new. Not to say that they're like unplayable, right? But like the most easy example is something like the Xander Water Allies deck that Christian won U.S. Nationals with. Yeah. Is sort of an archetype that has been almost wholly invalidated by the existence of these new Wind Assassin tempo decks and the existence of Nico, which sort of take both of the things that deck was strong and split them and do them a little bit better, right?
Right.
And so something that I want to pose to you, Stephen, is we have a couple of prevailing archetypes, I think, in Grand Archive, like things like Fire Merlin, mm-hmm. Rye, Wind Crux are the things that come to mind. Allies, right? But those are a little bit more wide. That's like saying aggro is a prevailing archetype, right? Like there's always going to be an allies deck. You play the best creatures, right?
Right.
Do you think that these recollection decks are going to stand the test of time? Do you think that like Wind, Tristan, and Spirit of Slime, Sylvie are going to be decks in perpetuity, and these are sort of always going to have a place in the meta, or do you think that they'll get that like phased out?
That's a good question. I think, again, not being biased, even though it sounds like it, I think the Assassin deck, I don't know if it'll 100%, stick around, but I think variations of it will, mm-hmm. because I think just as like a tempo, I'm going to control early game, kill you late game type of deck will always be good. Mm-hmm. I think the Sylvie deck, much like Rye and much like Erupting, will kind of fade and be fringe. Mm-hmm. Ooh, excuse me. With the more and more tamer stuff that comes out in the future, right?
Right.
So, however, I do think the Tristan stuff will always be good. I mean, unblockable hit for 8 or mm-hmm. hit for 10 is still, probably one of the best cards in the game.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think the Sylvie deck will fade to obscurity, but I think some variant of a Wind Assassin tempo deck will always exist.
And if that's the case, do you think that in the future this sort of like, I don't want to use the word issue, but that's the thing that I have for it at the time, this issue with MRC and these recollection decks sort of overshadowing it. Do you think this is something that sort of fades with time? Like as we get more established archetypes, right? And that thing that we said about starting with a skeleton and it being easier to innovate than it is to create something new from scratch is always going to be true, and it is true for every card game. But as the game matures and we have more long-lasting archetypes, if you can like look at a new set and be like, well, there's 25 decks that are still relevant today. What cards in, HVN go into these 25 decks? Do you think that sort of alleviates that issue with, decks like, or products like Recollection sort of overshadowing the main set?
I think as long we could go back to what you were thinking before, where like as long as the recollections aren't released with a main set or with a supplement set, I don't think so, right? Like if you are releasing your recollection decks in the in between space where, you know, we're not quite at the next set, I think it'll be fine.
Sure.
I think the main issue with the MRC stuff was that we got them both at the same time, so that the MRC people didn't have time to like or want to look at any of the stuff in there because they're like, oh, these recollection decks are really good, they're really strong. I have this skeleton, let me make this deck better. And we saw that over the course of the series, over the course of the season. Whereas like the Sylvie decks and the Tristan decks, little tweaks here, and then every top 8,
right?
We see Tristan Sylvie. You know, and then slowly you see people refining the Nico deck into the 60 card water pile it is now.
Right.
Where it's like every time I'm a turn 1 cast Icebound Slam and it's gonna hit you for the 7 because I'm always gonna mill water.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I mean we look at that first marquee event for MRC in Ascent Taipei, right? And we saw exactly like what you said. The whole tournament was filled with Tristies, you know,
Tristies and Sylvies,
Tristans and Sylvies, and we had that like one rogue Nico player that made 11th, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, this deck's so cool! Have you ever seen someone play Nico before?"
Right.
Wow,
and then
Ravaging a good card.
Every event after that,
it got like a little bit more.
We just watched Nico get better and better and better, right? Until like, you know,
she's good.
Yeah. But like the other 2 decks, you know, the quantity of people that are playing these decks outweigh the quantity of any other deck in the events, right? I don't have the statistics off the top of my head. Ooh.
We're losing them.
Excuse me. I don't have the statistics off the top of my head, but like, you know, you look at the thing, like our top 8 for Chicago was 6 Sylvies.
7 recollection decks.
Right.
Yeah.
6 Sylvies, 1 Tristan, 1 Erupting.
Right.
Shout out Matt G for being the outlier that's not playing a structure deck.
Right.
Not saying I'm not like discrediting the work that any of these players are putting into the creating their decks, because you know I know hundreds of hours of work goes into refining decks. 1 or 2 cards makes a huge difference in a deck.
Yeah.
But that's just like it's showing like no one put the time really into perfecting like robots or some other form of a deck, you know, the Nia spells deck, right? Which I definitely think exists. I just, you know,
yeah, it's a tough situation to be put in, and the competitive circuit for Grand Archive is so robust, and I think that's one of the best things about the game is that you have so many opportunities to play the game at a high level, store championships, regionals. There's an Ascent every month, and so you're under a lot of pressure as a competitive player. And so I know that a lot of the more like hyper competitive players this season have felt like pretty discouraged, and there's been a lot of like doomsaying about Sylvie and Tristan, and you know whichever side of the fence you're on, and Storm Slime's broken or Shadow Strike's broken or whatever. But a lot of that I think is bred from a lack of time where these decks are very obviously strong, and so when the tournament is sort of creeping up on you and it's 3 weeks away, it's 2 weeks away, oh my god, it's next week, I have to figure out what I'm playing, you run out of that sort of time to test everything and find whatever, you know, like rogue deck might be the solution to the meta, and if you can't beat them, join them, right? Like you get to the point where it's like, well, we're so close to the event, these decks are very clearly powerful, I should just play Sylvie. And so I think it's sort of like growing pains, right? I don't think that either of those decks, Sylvie or Tristan, are like nigh unstoppable. I'm sure that there was a deck, and you know we see like Matt G is a perfect example that you can find a deck that is strong into the meta, and you know sort of run the Sylvie gauntlet, right? If that's whatever the it deck is, but not everybody has that time to sort of figure that out and find that place in the meta. And so I know a lot of people have been discouraged this season because of that. But I think it all comes with time. all right, we get more players, we get more data points, we get more archetypes. As the game goes wider, there will be more answers to things, just like statistically, right? Like more cards mean there are more potential answers to every, strategy out there. And I do think, one of the unfortunate pitfalls about MRC, whether due to the design of the game or due to the reaction from the community, it's pretty unclear. So I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody. But MRC does feel a little bit more closed off than ALC did. And I think that's why, there's so many negative feelings flying around, that ALC felt like a very wide open meta. And MRC does feel a little bit tighter just because there's so much representation of those recollection decks. But we've said it time and time again, you guys don't necessarily need our soapbox opinions about it, but we don't believe that we should ban every card in the recollection decks just because people are playing them. It's about perseverance and adapting to the game as it grows.
And as much as people are saying like, there's no Diana deck, I feel like with all of there's so many new guns and bullets in MRC.
Well, again, look at Chicago, right? Like there is a Win Diana deck that found success.
Right.
Huge shout out to our friend Bob Scherbel, who's been playing almost exclusively Water Diana allies this season and been doing quite well with it.
Right.
There are decks that you can play. You don't have to play Sylvie if you don't want to. And if you do want to play Sylvie, go for it, man. Enjoy it. You enjoy that new Stone Scale band, and people can't bitch at you anymore about how broken your deck is.
Right. But they will.
They will anyway. There's no helping them.
You quick cast your Storm Slime and kill people.
Oh my god, so broken. That one card did 8 damage. Like a fireball for 18 months. Whatever. But yeah, so that I think sums up how we feel about MRC.
That's awesome. Like,
yeah, Water Diana won Orlando Store Champs last week, which I assume was a pretty big event. Orlando is a pretty big crowd for Grand Archive. So, persevere, look forward to the future.
Right.
And we are very excited for AMB, but I think that MRC definitely did some treading new ground. I think a lot of the cards in MRC were super cool, and I hope that maybe when we broaden a little bit with AMB, and especially with more support for like Mage and Warrior, hopefully we see some of these like more niche specific cards out of MRC flourish a little bit more. It does, like when you print a card like Cordelia or Naya or whatever, sometimes they are with the future in mind, right? Like just because they printed a cool build around card doesn't mean that you can build around that card and you're going to have a tier 1 deck, right? But at some point you might be able to leverage those cool, tools to sort of build out whatever strategy you identify with. So here's hoping to AMB broadening up our meta a little bit, and people stop bitching about recollection decks. Get over it. Get over it. Whatever, dude. I don't know. Any final thoughts, Steve?
No, I think you said it the best. Like, just fucking play the game, right?
Just get over it, dude.
Yeah, just enjoy the archetype you like, and just play the game. Like, don't worry about things you can't control.
Yeah. So, with that said, that's all we have for you guys this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back next week. Don't know exactly what we're talking about. I think we're still a bit shy of any of the exciting stuff. So if you guys have anything that you want us to talk about, let us know. I'm going to say some things, and they're all untrue. All right, you ready?
Yep, we're waiting.
You can catch us here live on the YouTube, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Friday. Film the podcast. Asterisk. That one's usually true. You can find the last week's episode on Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That one's
just not true.
That's 50% true.
I'm just so far behind.
Yep.
So you'll see a couple of those podcasts coming out in the next couple of days. Lastly, we did have the fortune of getting to interview lead developer Celadar in Chicago. That is currently open on my computer at home, so that will be coming out soon. I fucked up the audio. I'm sorry. I'll make an apology in that video, and you will see it. But you guys should see that soon. It was a super cool chat with Sil, so shout out to him for taking a seat with us. And as far as Grand Archive goes, not us, but Grand Archive, make sure you buy your tickets to Ascent Toronto. Those are on sale. We will be there. We will see you there. Make sure you buy your tickets to Ascent Christchurch. Those are also on sale. That's all the way in November. You can still get tickets for Ascent Singapore, which is really soon.
Yeah.
That's really coming up. That's like 6 weeks or something away. And last but not least, we will be getting our developer live stream on September 14th, which is a couple of weeks from now, where they will be showing us the design notes, and they better be showing me what fucking Kongming does.
I have wholehearted.
Please.
I feel like
God.
at the
Please.
very least we're gonna see level 1s. We gotta.
Give me something.
We gotta.
Why is she spinning so much? I don't know. All right. Well, thank you guys. We will see you next week.
Have a good one.
Woo.
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 Woo.